Hello and welcome to episode 382 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans' weekly podcast of many topics. And today's topic is school, because right now in end of August, beginning of September, a lot of students are going back to school, and we have thoughts on that. But before we go into show and tell, let's introduce the rest of the class, starting with Jonathan Logan.
That's Edutainment, baby.
And Niki Fakhoori.
Hello.
And Jimmy Turner.
Howdy.
Jimmy, Niki, Jono. Edutainment games, or educational games, have been part of curriculums all over the world, at least since the 80s, probably the 70s, but as a child born in the 80s who mostly had his education in the 90s, I have a sort of a very specific era and kind of game that I view as edutainment or educational games. And it's not a topic that we talk about much on RPG Fan, because rarely are these RPGs, if ever. But I think because it's foundational to so many players of video games, including the four of us, of course, that it's definitely worth an episode of a podcast to talk about. And there's no better time to talk about it than the start of the school year. And we have both educators and parents in the panel here with me. So I think that we have a near ideal group to discuss that topic. So does anyone want to go first? Talk a little bit about your personal background playing video games at school or related to school.
Sure. Okay. I was born in 1984, so I was in elementary school in the very early 90s. And back in those days, there was a computer lab, and there was one. It was very much like a gym class or a music class. Like you'd leave your classroom and you'd go to the other room, and you'd have like one period of like a half hour to 45 minutes of just sitting in this room. And it was just full of like 20 computers that the school got discount from somebody, and the teacher knew nothing about computers at all. So the entire class would just be like, there would be a couple of edutainment games installed on this system. So it'd be like Super Solvers games or something like that. And you just sit there and you play a game for like a half hour that's vaguely educational, and then you'd leave. And then that was it. Now for me, there was a after school program called Future Kids that they opened up in the strip mall near my house. And that's where I really got a passion for not video games, but for computers. And it was taught by people who actually knew computers. And it wasn't just edutainment games there. It was also, programming and things like that. But yeah, that's my background with computer education, which was very limited back when I was a kid.
Excellent. Well, I guess I could go next. I'm similar in age to you, Jono. I was born in 86. So, and like I said, my elementary school years were basically the entire 90s. And I think it depended on which class and school I was attending at the time, because I did change schools a couple times. In one neighborhood, like there was a separate school for kindergarten to third, and then fourth through sixth, and then I moved once, like situations like that. But sometimes there was a computer lab where we would have dedicated computer time. There was even a typing a learn how to type class that I took for at least 1 year in elementary school, maybe more than 1 year, but mostly the computer games were sort of a reward, I remember, for being able to finish work on time, and computer lab would be withheld if you misbehaved. And I remember one class in particular, there was not a separate computer lab. There was a row of maybe 8 or so computers at one side of the very large classroom, and people that finished their work and had it checked, you were allowed to read at your desk or use one of the computers. So sometimes there were, mostly boys and mostly including me, a sprint to be able to claim one of the computers before it was claimed by someone else. And they had a lot of the games you mentioned. Super Solvers, Midnight Rescue was an old favorite of mine.
Midnight Rescue is so cool.
I thought about talking about that one in greater detail today, but went with something else. Math Blaster, Word Munchers and Number Munchers. Lemonade Stand, which somehow taught me supply and demand economics when I was when my age was in the single digits. Basically, a lot of these mostly DOS edutainment games I think have sort of found foundational, and I had some at home as well on my family's computer. But I don't think these games taught me a ton of things, but they but there was educational content in there, or like Super Solvers is basically a reading comprehension and logic puzzle game. um and this is maybe a theme I'll keep revisiting, but even though I probably didn't learn a lot from these games specifically, I think they got me excited about learning and things like math and words and geography, in a
Mhm.
way that a regular classroom lesson didn't. And I'm sure that uh, like video games in the classroom is much different today than it was when I was in grade school 30 years ago. But Nikki or Jimmy, what is your individual experience with edutainment in the classroom?
Well, my age is right between the two of you. I was born in '85, so it's pretty similar. I went to public school, but I was in a um, low income neighborhood when I was a kid, so not a lot of funding in the schools I went to. So we never had a computer lab. I don't remember seeing an in classroom computer until maybe second grade, so maybe around like '92. I don't know where they got them, but we all the classrooms ended up with like two Apple IIs in the classroom, so they were probably hand me downs. I'm imagining, but that's where I was first introduced to some of these education games. Not a lot really, but I feel like of all the kids in my class, me and maybe a small group of my friends were the ones that really took to it because we were already like home console gamers. Um, and I don't think that was very popular amongst the school I went to. So we had quite a fun time, playing these games together. I don't know how much of the educational value we got out of it, um, like you said, but yeah, it's definitely different now because now I've got four kids in school and they've been in computer lab on computers, especially the younger ones, since day one that school started this year.
I have no doubt about that. And if you don't mind sharing, what are the ages of your four kids?
7, 8, 14, and 15. Sorry, I had to think for a minute because birthdays.
No, no, no. I get it. But so yeah, you probably, I'm sure from your observation, the sort of the technology used by your 14 and 15-year old is different from your 7 and 8-year olds when they were in the same grades.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I feel like the little ones use computers so much. Like when I was a kid, it was an awesome privilege to be able to use the computer at school and play these games. And the little ones come home now and they complain. It's just, I don't want to do the computer at school. I don't want to play Geo Go or whatever it is that they're playing today.
I mean, I'm surprised the concept of computer lab even still exists in elementary schools or high schools today. It just seems like the concept of a computer is now so universal that that's just kind of a part of school, I would imagine.
Yeah, my older kids, they all get their own Chromebooks. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, the schools I teach in, the elementary schools I teach in that have a computer lab, it's in addition to each classroom having their own collection of computers, but the computer lab for them is specifically to teach them like kind of ways to use a computer like effectively, like, hey, I heard you guys are doing research in your English class. Let's find out how to, look for good sources on the internet and what sources aren't so great. But also, like, very specific, like, they have programming games to teach these little children how to, like, code. So that's pretty neat.
I'm
Um,
suddenly jealous of like small children.
yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's true. I've noticed that. It's like, this isn't Fortnite, so I don't want to do it. But it's like, but it's pretty cool what they get to do, even if they don't realize it. But that's how kids always are, you know? That's tale as old as time. It's just this time it's with computers and not like books. I don't want to
Mhm.
read The Giver. I want to read Animorphs, like, hey, both of those are good.
And you know, when I was elementary school age, I was probably more excited about Mega Man than Lemonade Stand. But that doesn't still mean I have a very specific memory of Lemonade Stand that was somewhat formative to my feelings on games and school. And that's what we're here today, to talk about sort of games and school and their intersection. And it wouldn't be an elementary school without show and tell. I've used this metaphor before. I think when Retro Encounter does episodes often where everyone on the panel brings something to share with the rest of the panel, and so we're doing a show and tell episode for our edutainment episode, where each of us suggested one edutainment or at least education adjacent game. Well, all four panelists tried each of these four games for at least a little bit, so we would have, you know, some idea for how the game feels, even if we didn't dedicate a lot of time to other people's selections. So we have four classic edutainment games here, all dated from the 80s through the mid 80s through the mid 90s, because that's just the ages that we are. And who wants to go first? Who wants to go first in show and tell? All right, I'll go first.
This is just like school.
Yeah, no, everyone's a little shy on the first day of school and isn't sure, you know,
Raise your hands.
They aren't sure exactly
They all
what
look
the sort
away
of
from
vibe
the
is yet.
teacher. They just like kind of shift their eyes away. Don't make eye contact. They won't call on you.
Mr. Sollosi, can I go to the bathroom?
You don't have to tell me. You can just go.
Oh, you were that kind of teacher. Okay.
But it's probably for the best that I'm not an actual teacher. I believe in my ability to design a lesson and give a lecture, but do not believe in my ability to control a classroom of children.
Okay, today's lesson is why Kingdom Hearts sucks.
That's more of a college level course than like pre-K through 12, I'd say.
I would resort to just showing movies in the class remarkably quickly, but then the movies would probably reflect very poorly on me, because I think probably around John Wick Chapter 3, I would get some letters from parents. But anyway, the game that I decided to bring to the class is related to crime in a way, like John Wick, but it's considerably less violent. Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego was an early gaming obsession of mine. Again, I was born in '86, so I was playing the 1985 and I think maybe the early '90s remakes of Carmen Sandiego. Around the time I was watching the PBS the PBS series that I don't think we had them in school, but that PBS game show and the video game got me interested in geography very early, and geography was probably my favorite regular classroom class. Discounting things like recess or gym, for a large part of my youth. And it's probably easiest to find the 80s versions, but I remember the 96 Where in the World with that was fully voiced, and the 1998 Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego that was more focused on logic puzzles than geography. That I really think of those two games very highly. It's really kind of difficult to find those 96 to 98 games. There's also a Where in the USA is Carmen Sandiego from around that same time that I never played.
My favorite is Where in North Dakota is Carmen Sandiego.
There's enough places in North Dakota to have a game set around them?
Apparently. Who knew? Boy. Carmen Sandiego has an affinity for North Dakota.
Wow.
Yeah, the game is so stylish. They're framing it like you're that you're a detective, usually starting at Gumshoe, and the crimes that Carmen Sandiego are completely preposterous, like stealing all of colonial Williamsburg or the Arc de Triomphe or Murasaki Shikabu's first copy of The Tale of Genji, all of which are actual scenarios from the games I remember, and you having to sort of globe hop and use like geography facts and some basic like appearance based puzzles, like oh, this witness said the suspect had red hair, this witness said the suspect had a scar, go through the dossier to see which suspects have scars and red hair, kind of those two sort of systems working in parallel to catch the culprit. And there was more education and sort of more back end learning about the sites you visited in those 90s versions that I mentioned. But generally, those original games were mostly geography facts and some light logic puzzles. But the coolest part was running around and sort of being a crime fighter, because Carmen Sandiego, technically the antagonist, but everyone's kind of rooting for her.
Yeah, she is a bad bitch.
Yeah, absolutely,
She is.
And it's not an accident that the Netflix cartoon of Carmen Sandiego from a couple years ago makes her the protagonist and not the antagonist anymore.
It's the hat.
Oh yeah.
She's just incredibly super stylish, and why wouldn't you want her to win?
She's stylish and mysterious, and is somehow definitely your opponent, but does not feel outright evil ever. She's just sort of cooler than you.
Yeah, there's so much glamour to her.
And again, like, this game is, I don't think this game is necessarily trying to teach you geography. It's just a fun game about geography that got me, at least as at a certain age, excited to look at maps and learn about places. Again, I'm not sure how much Carmen Sandiego actually taught me, but it definitely got me interested in learning more, which is again a theme I think we'll be revisiting often in this episode.
The version I'm most familiar with was the 92 remake. I think that was the one that was installed on the computers in my computer lab. But for this, I went back and I played the 85 original. And my first response when I loaded up was like, what the heck is this music? Why am I not hearing a cappella? Because, I mean, that the theme song from the game show is everything to Carmen Sandiego.
It's iconic. The 96 version does have video sequences of the chief from the game show. Yeah.
Yep.
But not the host or Rockapella, unfortunately.
See, I think that this game actually teaches more than I thought it was. Like, my memory of it is it's teaching geography facts that I don't know, and I get lost, and I'm like, how am I supposed to know which country has a red and blue flag? But in playing it this time, it's teaching deductive reasoning. So it's teaching you how to narrow things down because you keep getting clues about the identities of the various thieves. So you learn deductive reasoning. It does teach you some geography in terms of like flying places and where to go. The funny thing about the 85 version is so much of the material now is ridiculously out of date that I was getting questions wrong. And I was like, it's like 35, 40 years ago.
Yeah, Czechoslovakia is not a place anymore. But even it just teaches you a little bit of where things are on the map, because when you fly to Czechoslovakia, you have to watch the animation of the plane going to Czechoslovakia, and like a lot of students nowadays probably can't identify most of the countries in an area where they don't live, and so that was that probably taught me a little bit that I don't necessarily remember 30 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, there were elements of adventure gaming sort of things in there, and I think my favorite, I didn't even realize this as I was playing it after I would solve a case, and they would ask me a really specific geography question, and I would be like, what the, huh? And then I discovered that was copy protection, because the game came with a book, the World Almanac, and you had to, in order to get promoted at the end of the case, you needed to answer a question from the World Almanac to prove that you knew that you bought the copy of the game, which I just think is really funny.
I just knew the answer the time that they showed that to me, but that is an early form of copy protection that you see in not just Carmen Sandiego. That was quite common to have some kind of clue or password in the manual to try to mitigate piracy. Jimmy, did you play any of the Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego games back in the day?
Oh yeah, I believe I also played the 92 version, was the one that I'm most familiar with. But yeah, I also am a huge fan of the show, especially before I got cable as a kid. So PBS was my go-to for any kids programming, and that was must-see TV every day.
Yeah, my parents, I think we did have cable, but my parents were very careful about what shows I watched, and they always let me watch PBS stuff. And I think my dream of wanting to be on Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego eventually evolved into a dream of wanting to be on Jeopardy. So it's it's influenced me in more ways than one, I guess. But yeah, I remember playing the 85 one in elementary school a little bit because it was an old game on hand-me-down computers. But at home, I played the 96, 98 versions of Where in the World and Where in Time, and view those games really highly, even though there isn't really a good way to find those either of them anymore. Um, but I think that's enough Carmen Sandiego discussion.
No, I know
Who
why
else
you're
wants to
trying to
go?
go past this super quickly. I know
Oh,
why. I know why.
why?
Because in the SNES one, I don't know if this is the case for the PC ones, but in the SNES one, which is the one I played, the dossiers all talk about food that each of these villainous people like, and most of them, including Miss San Diego herself, like tacos. So if I learned anything from this game, it's not about geography or the color of countries' flags or the languages that they speak in those countries. It's that villains most likely like tacos.
How
So if
dare
you meet
you?
someone who likes tacos, we may know
How
someone
dare
like
you?
that in here. I'm just saying maybe they work for
Ooh,
Miss
for
San
Vile?
Diego herself. She likes tacos too. I'm just saying she's going out in her convertible, her ruby necklace, her badass hat, and she's going to Taco Bell to steal the entire Taco Bell. That's all I'm saying. Keep an eye out.
Okay, I will not disagree, except for the fact that Carmen Sandiego has a pearl necklace and not a ruby
In
necklace,
no in
because
the SNES one,
uh,
it's a ruby
in the PC
necklace.
in the PC one, when the final boss is there's a whole room of Carmen Sandiegos, and you have to capture the one that's wearing the pearl necklace.
You see, this is how she gets you because she's actually
Ah,
cloned herself. This is the deep lore.
this is the Carmen Sandiego lore I was not expecting to visit in this podcast,
I mean,
but
it's true. She hasn't aged since 1985.
There you go. Think about
I,
it.
I would I would love to know her skin routine and if it involves tacos or not.
Probably.
Now, Nikki,
Mhm.
we know Carmen Sandiego likes tacos.
But who likes pizza?
Pizza,
Let's
yeah.
go. Oh
You know
man.
what, Sollosi? I missed your transitions because that was nice.
That was a good segue.
That was a beautiful segue.
Nikki, when you suggested this game for the episode, I jumped in my chair because I loved this game when I was, I don't know, or maybe in the 10 to 12-year-old range, because this is one of my favorite 90s edutainment games. Please educate us on the logical journey of the Zoombinis.
So the Zumbinis were living just a happy life. They were prosperous, they were peaceful, and then the Glucks showed up. And they said, "You know what? We can help make your economy boom." And the Zubinis, being these kind souls that they are, were like, "Okay, we'll enter into an agreement with you." But then what happened was the Glucks betrayed them, and they basically got them into indentured servitude and tortured them, and it was just awful. So what happened was the Zumbinis decide enough is enough. So they all get onto a boat to escape to anywhere away from the Glucks. And what happens? You make your little Zumbinis. The boat can only hold so many at a time. I think like 16 or so at a time. And they make their way to this island. And what else would be on an island but logic puzzles? And so, in order to get the Zumbinis from the coast of this island to their new little village, at the end, they have to go through some pretty tough logical puzzles. But once you get them through, they can start anew in Zoombiniville. And then you just repeat the process. And you want to get all 400 Zoombinis over, or else they'll be tortured by the Glucks. So don't stop until you save them all, kids.
a couple notes. I think it depends on what version of the game you're playing, because the original was 96. There was a revision in 2001, and then a full remake that is on Steam today in 2015. The version I played, the villains were called the Bloats instead of the Glucks.
Maybe they're called the Bloats, and I just can't remember. I think you're right.
I think they changed names between some versions, but also when I played this as a kid, there are some puzzles where you maybe can't get all 16 of your Zoombinis across. Like maybe you make too many mistakes at the bridge, and you only get 10, and 6 have to stay behind. Like situations like that. I think it depends on how many Zoombinis are in Zoombiniville, but the difficulty increases periodically, and the puzzles get much more challenging. And I couldn't get all 400 at the end. I got somewhere in the 300s because a few of the puzzles, when you reach the highest difficulty, are just diabolical. But the puzzles are fun, and teach you like things like pattern recognition and deductive reasoning, and other sort of logic puzzle adjacent skills. But the personality of this game, with the cute little blue Zoombinis with face and hair that the player customizes, and the spirit of that narrator, and the way he says Zoombiniville is an amazing reward every time you complete a round of the game.
Hip hip
Zoombini!
hip hip
Zoombini! Oh man, that game was a delight to revisit. I didn't get to finish it, even a single round of it, because the version I had kept crashing around the midpoint of the game. I think it crashed at the lily pad puzzle twice.
That's its own logic puzzle within itself. Did you know that this game has branching paths? So it's like an RPG.
It's like Castlevania 3 or Saga 2, Jono's favorite game.
Yes, I'm glad that we've somehow tied this into the relevance of RPGs.
But yeah, I think there's 12 puzzles, but you only do 9 of them in one run, because there's a path in the middle that you have to sort of choose which round of puzzles you get. But all of them, from the very rude boulders that keep knocking you down the stairs, to the weird troll that loves pizza, the fleens that you have to. The first time I played it this time around, I forgot that you had to try to get them off the branch with the bees on it. So I lost multiple Zoombinis that day.
That's what I love about the game. They don't tell you how to do the puzzles. They just throw you in there and say, figure it out. And that's part of it.
If you click the question mark icon, they give you a hint. But still, there is this is the Dark Souls of edutainment games of the 90s. Yeah. You have to. They throw you in, and you have to just figure it out.
I remember when I did it, I played the remake on Steam Deck, and it's the exact same game, except the graphics are redone. And when I clicked the question mark, the only hint that came up was, don't be afraid to make mistakes. If any of your Zoombinis can't make it across, they'll be waiting for you at the campfire that you just passed by. Is like, thanks for the hint. At least I know my Zoombinis won't die.
I mean, that's fairly valuable that you know the Zoombinis that you fail don't end up back in slavery.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I think if you fail in the first couple puzzles, they're waiting at the ship, and if you fail in the second half of puzzles, they go back to the campfire. And you even can store and sort the Zoombinis in this weird shelf, so you can, like, if you really want to metagame logical journey of the Zoombinis, you can try and take Zoombinis that have a few specific common traits to make the puzzles easier. But I didn't do that. I just clicked random a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did too.
Mm.
Interestingly, I'm looking at the front box art of the original game right now, and it says, builds advanced math thinking skills. This isn't a math game. This is a logic game. This game builds, in my opinion, logical thinking. Not, math.
Yeah, I would say logical thinking, pattern recognition,
Observation.
observation. It's the package is so charming that this might be just one of the most moment to moment fun games on the whole list. I wanted to play more Zoombinis and was personally slightly frustrated that the cheap free version I found kept crashing, and I looked hard at that Steam remake. Oh yeah, I wish listed it, but I didn't quite pull the trigger yet.
Basically, it's kind of like the game is kind of like what if Lemmings weren't idiots?
Yeah.
What if Lemmings had like fewer dark implications? Because I don't think those Lemmings go back to the beginning island with if they don't make it across.
No, they do not. It's a fascinating game. This is a game I completely missed. I never played this when I was a kid. I loaded her up and I really was having some fun with it. Interesting concept, interesting world. It has a story behind it, which a lot of edutainment games don't. There's actual stakes there that matter. There's a lot of possibilities. Let's see. I was looking at this earlier. There are apparently 1,250 possible Zoobinis in total, based on the combinations that you can put together.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hair, eyes, nose, and feet. Yeah, and I think it's either 4 or 5 options between each of those. Yeah,
There's 5 options each, and you can have twins.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that changes everything.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's 5 to the 4th power times 2. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think the game it's great. Again, I found a version of the original one and I played it, and I was enjoying myself. The game has so much personality; it's ridiculous. Also,
that narrator, give that narrator a damn Tony Award or something.
Also, this is the second game that we're talking about today from a certain developer that was synonymous with edutainment games of the early 90s.
Yeah. Broderbund was basically like edutainment games and Prince of Persia, and that's about it.
Yeah, they released a lot of games. They didn't last a tremendous length of time, but they certainly made their mark on the industry.
I think right after the 1998 Wherein Time is Carmen Sandiego, they were folded into another company, which is why there wasn't really much start Carmen Sandiego after that, after 1998.
They were acquired by the Learning Company.
Oh,
which,
that's
of
who
course,
it was. Yeah,
became...
of course it was them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were a titan of that specific time and genre.
Whoa. Sorry, Sollosi. Keep in mind, this was in 1998. They were acquired for $420 million in stock.
Wow.
That's a big buyout.
Blaze it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, speaking of blazing, let's talk a little bit about trailblazing. Jimmy, you probably have, with apologies to the other 3 of us, I would say the most iconic edutainment game of the 4 that we chose. This is the game that I think for people of a certain age, including me, was the game synonymous with those hand-me-down DOS computers at your elementary school. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Oregon Trail?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, this was... My recollection was the only game we had at the beginning when we got the computers. It seemed like for years, but all that is kind of jumbled together now, thinking back on it. But so yeah, Oregon Trail. I originally played the Apple II version, which actually originally came out all the way back in '85, the year I was born, and then the DOS version came out in '90, and so I played both versions of that, but essentially they're the same game, just with little updated graphics. And but it's a history-based game where you start off in Independence, Missouri, and you are gathering a party to journey west along the Oregon Trail, and the goal is to make it to Oregon safely without dying. And boy, can that be a challenge, even replaying it today. I thought, sometimes when you go back to games from your childhood, you're like, how did I play these? They're so much harder than I remember. I kind of had a similar experience going back and playing Oregon Trail again. But I still love it. The nostalgia it gives me, just all the memories I had of playing with the other kids in the class. Really, I think it's probably maybe a basis for why I liked like RPGs later on, because we would play these games together and almost like we're, working together and almost role playing in a way. You pick what your profession is, you're naming every member of your party, and you're trying to, there's survival elements to it. You have to hunt for your food. You have a budget, depending on, that's really where the difficulty settings are, is essentially picking your profession. You can be either a banker, a carpenter, or a farmer, and depending on which of those professions you chose is how much money you get. And then
it's basically the difficulty setting, because this
Yep.
is a game of resource management, and banker starts with the most money and farmer starts with the least money. So that's it, like that's the difficulty that you choose at the beginning. I went with carpenter for the 2 or 3 runs that I did, because I felt like, well, I'm probably a little bit better at strategic video games now than when I was, say, 6. So I thought carpenter seemed about right.
Yeah. And the other thing that I remembered so fondly is the in-game leaderboard, that you could see, all the other kids in either your class or classes that have come before you, even, that you can see, how many points they accumulated, which points are also dependent on your difficulty setting, I guess. What profession you chose. There's a multiplier involved. And how many people in your party make it all the way to Oregon, which I definitely remember getting my name on that leaderboard back in grade school, and that being a pretty awesome achievement.
I don't remember if I ever finished a game of Oregon Trail when I was in grade school. I did many years later when I was when I was probably a teenager, or maybe even in my 20s. I found a version of Oregon Trail and decided, you know what, I should try to actually beat this game for once. And I had Amazon Trail at home, which was a much more involved game. We had to go into the jungle and identify animals and stuff, but also was basically a resource management style game. That was some years after Oregon Trail, and I loved Amazon Trail. I made the mistake of naming my characters in my wagon after my childhood dogs, and that that just means I got to see them die a second time. So that's
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 sad.
horrible.
that was a mistake on my part. But I did okay. I think I got to Blue Mountains the first round, and then for my second attempt, I reduced my rations earlier and spent more, and made better choices for when to rest, and did get to Willamette Valley on my second attempt. And basically it's a resource management game that has a lot of options, like the little hunting mini game, and some choice based gameplay that it was, I mean, so ahead of its time for 1985. I'm not sure
if it's time for the 1970s.
Yeah, that's true. It was originally designed in 1975, but its sort of wide release was that Apple II version in 85.
Yeah.
So it's extremely unlikely that anyone our age would play a version older than the Apple II version. But I don't know how educational this game is necessarily. If anything, it teaches you that living in the 1800s was suffering.
Yes, it was. I was talking about steaks with in the last game, but the steaks, and none of my Zoobinis died of dysentery. Let's put it that way.
I had oh man, I saw my childhood dogs die of cholera and exhaustion.
Yeah.
I took a screenshot of this when it happened to me because I thought it was pretty interesting. The wagon tipped over while floating. You lose 3 sets of clothing, 2 wagon wheels, 1 wagon axle, 565 pounds of food, and Blairy drowned.
Much food.
You lose your guy. You lose him. He's gone. Lost in the river. See ya.
God, is it sad that I was more shocked at the amount of food you lost than that you lost a settler?
Man, I was upset too, but poor Blairy, he didn't do anything to deserve this.
On my run, I had the worst luck with my frigging oxen. I initially bought, I did a terrible job of resource management. I bought like 5 oxen, and right off the top, and within the first like 3 days, I got robbed and they stole 4 of my oxen.
Oh
So
no.
it was super slow going to the next stop. And right at the next stop, I realized, okay, I'm going way too slow. I got to buy 2 more oxen. I'm not kidding. The next night, someone stole my new 2 oxen. And then my 1 oxen broke it got sick or injured or something like that. At that point, I was like, okay, we're starting over because
This is
this
the
family
worst.
is dead.
This is the worst roguelike I've ever heard.
It is a roguelike. Oregon Trail is a roguelike.
I had
There's
a
our
lot
connection
of,
to RPG fan.
I had so many food problems on my first run, and the further that you get, the more expensive supplies get deeper in the trail, which is a pretty smartly designed difficulty curve, I would think. But again, it's basically a strategic roguelike that is couched in American history a little bit. But I think that the most memorable things that many people take away from the game is practically became a meme that John died of dysentery. So like again, this just teaches you the past sucks. You should be happy that you get to play this video game instead of live this experience.
Yes, and I am every time I play it. This is a game that has had quite a life after as well. Like there's an Apple Arcade version of it now that I downloaded after I played the original, just because I was curious. And it's pretty good. It's very true to the original. But it does one of the things it does is it incorporates more modern history. It eliminates a lot of the offensive portrayals of Native Americans in it. And it offers new paths, some more choices, but it's still pretty true to the original. I was enjoying it quite a bit. So this is available in a more modern form if you want to subject your kids to having their settlers die in horrible ways on their journey west.
But I should ask. I mean, what did people name their settlers? Or what convention did you use to name your settlers?
Since I picked Banker, I named him Banker, and then like Bob and Blairy, and like some other weird name that started with a B, but wasn't a real name.
So an alliterative banker family.
Yeah.
I did about 3 runs of the game. I was not successful in any of them. The one that was probably most appropriate for this particular audience is I named my party. I call them party because that's what I think in RPGs. I named them the main characters of Final Fantasy IV. So Cecil, Rosa, Rydia, Kane, Edge.
Going all the way back to grade school, I've always named my party the names of professional wrestlers that I like. So,
Nice,
Oh no!
nice.
Did Mr. Perfect die of dysentery?
not this time. He's perfect. He can't die.
Oh, R.I.P. Paul Hennig. But
Kurt Hennig.
Kurt
Sorry,
Hennig.
I'm that
I thought
guy.
his son was Kurt. No. His son. Okay, his son was Curtis Axel, who named it right. My bad.
Yeah.
But the I need to play the new WrestleQuest game to make sure that my wrestling knowledge is doesn't rust away. But
If you're curious about that, you should listen to last week's random encounter.
Oh, maybe I did. But I named the main character. Named my party wagon leader Michael, and then the other 4 after my some dogs I knew from childhood: Godiva, Rosie, Lily, and Theo. Everyone died in my first attempt, and the only person that passed away on the second attempt was Lily, R.I.P. She was a very sassy black Labrador from many years ago. But I mean, I had my childhood dogs, and when growing up with my nuclear family. But what's it like raising a family in a brand new city from scratch?
With a nuclear power plant.
Yeah. Well, it can be very challenging. So SimCity 2000, this is my choice for my edutainment game. My first exposure to SimCity came from the Super Nintendo because SimCity for SNES was a launch title. And as it was one of the only titles available for rent at Abercrombie Video, that was something that I played a lot of. And I loved SimCity. It was one of my favorite games for the Super Nintendo. And actually, looking at this, it sold, how many copies did it sell? It only sold 300,000 copies on PC, but it sold 2 million copies on the Super Nintendo. So
it was very popular in Japan. There's even SimCity 2000 characters in Smash Brothers.
Yeah, Will Wright. Will Wright designed SimCity, and then of course, because of the success and all the other Sim games were not doing that well, they decided to do a sequel. So they did SimCity 2000, and it changed the perspective from directly overhead to a little bit of isometric view. And it was released on PC, and they made it a little bit more futuristic. Like you kind of you kind of started like mid 20th century, and then you could get some future stuff like various new future technologies for power plants over time. Now, I some people would argue that SimCity 2000 it's a sim, it's not an edutainment game, and I disagree I disagree solidly because the thing about SimCity 2000 and SimCity in general is that the games teach things that aren't really taught in schools, which is basic urban development, urban management, resource management again, but like I learned more about how an actual urban space runs from the SimCity games than I was ever taught in elementary or high school. It gave me an appreciation for the delicate balance that comes with having to run a city, like everything from your electricity to your underground to your pipes to just basic zoning to make sure that your residential and your industrial zones aren't too close together. I think this game taught an awful lot to its players without them even realizing it, and I think that's the secret to a good edutainment game. You gotta sneak in those lessons so the kids playing it don't actually realize they're learning things. And ignoring all of that, SimCity 2000 is it's a damn good sim. It's a damn good sim. I was taken aback by just how clunky it felt going back to it because I haven't played it for many many years. But it was still fun, and I had fun building up my little city for like about an hour or so.
And one thing I think is worth mentioning is that by far this is the most free-form, open-ended game on our list here. Oregon Trail, Zoombinis, and Carmen Sandiego are all fairly structured games. But SimCity 2000, I mean, there are specific scenarios that you can load in, like and especially if you want to, if you want a more pre-built city or you want a particularly challenging setup. But mostly, you're just dropped into an empty field and you just need to start building. And
Mm-hmm.
and Jimmy, maybe you're in a better position to comment on this than the others of us because you have kids who are school age. But I think probably one of the most prominent educational games or games used in schools nowadays is Minecraft, which because I'm sure at least one of your kids has a close relationship with Minecraft. Am I assuming correctly?
You are 100% correct.
Yeah.
My youngest one is absolutely obsessed with Minecraft.
But Minecraft and SimCity 2000 both are sort of, I mean, there are rules and things you can do and can't do, but are mostly about the total freedom that you have at your disposal in a mostly empty starting scenario, and then like both trying to achieve objectives but also like expressing yourself creatively in some way. I think that like SimCity and maybe also maybe 2000 more specifically, like there I think there is a through line to building a city from an empty field in SimCity to starting with an empty field in Minecraft and just digging and seeing what you can build and discover. I think that like I was a little overwhelmed by SimCity 2000. I just started putting houses and power plants down and just to see if I could, you know, have a sustainable neighborhood, and I think I sort of did, but I didn't go too deep into the game, John. I'm sorry. I actually avoid games that are too open ended. I find them slightly overwhelming. I'm not a Minecraft guy for one, but like I would almost like compare it to a game with a lot of urban planning, like a Civilization, which is more my speed, but also a game that's about expression and creativity, like a Kid Pix or like an art game.
It's a toy box. It's SimCity 2000, a lot of sim games, Minecraft. There is just you're given a box full of toys, and you can pull them out and play with them however you want. You can create whatever you want with them.
And those toys include little houses and train tracks.
Exactly. Oh yeah, if you're a fan of like models and like doing that kind of thing, SimCity is just it's a joy.
The most recent version of SimCity was not a joy. Coming out in the 2010s, it was hugely disappointing to fans. But I think it also illustrated that there are so many fans of these urban planning sort of games that when Cities Skylines came out some years ago, it was received so positively that there is definitely a fan base and an audience for this kind of game, even in the 2020s.
Oh, yeah. EA just dropped the ball on SimCity. They screwed it up so bad.
I don't remember exactly when it happened, but I remembered everyone being like derisive and disappointed.
Well, my memory of what happened is SimCity 2000 came out and it was a massive hit, and it was ported to bloody well everything. Then SimCity 3000 came out a few years later, and I actually think SimCity 3000 was the pinnacle of the series. Like, it did everything that 2000 did, but better and looked prettier. It was a really, really good, solid game. 4 came out, it was, yeah, whatever, it was fine. I just preferred playing 3000, but then SimCity, the 2013 version, the city size was extremely limited, and they had online connectivity and multiplayer, and you couldn't avoid it. You had to go with this, and it was just a lot of people were very, very angry at it. A lot of people were angry at it. And then you're right, City Skylines came along not 2 years later, and who published it? Was it Paradox? I think so. Anyway, it came out and it did everything that SimCity did, just as well, but updated and added new features. And City Skylines is essentially SimCity 4, or SimCity, I guess at this point, SimCity 5. It's just kind of what it is. Wait, is it 6? How many SimCity games are there?
Oh boy, that's a rabbit hole I haven't
There
gone
are
down.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 5. So essentially, City Skylines is basically SimCity 6. In terms of the gameplay, what it does, it's that's what it is. And EA, I think they screwed it up so bad that it's dead. SimCity is dead, but it lives on in the newest one. And everything that SimCity 2000 started with teaching you about urban decay and teaching you about just basic city governance is continued into City Skylines, just on a much more massive scale and much more detailed simulation.
Yeah, I did sort of make the connection that someone that played SimCity 2000 would develop an interest in architecture or urban planning, but I didn't really think that it also illustrated things like like urban decay and taxation. This is unrelated, but I remember I first understood how loans and interest worked from playing Roller Coaster Tycoon. Because you start out with a loan and you can increase the loan, but then your interest increases, and then you try to make enough money to pay off the loan. Like that, I learned more about loans and interest from Roller Coaster Tycoon than I ever did in a grade school classroom.
Well, coming from your, actually, Sollosi, do you want me to mention your professional career?
Sure, it's fine.
Okay. Well, Sollosi, coming from your professional career, SimCity and City Skylines, they also deal with things like water and sewage management and things like that.
Yeah, no, I work for the public works department of where I live, and I deal with urban planning and maps of utilities and zoning all the time. So but truthfully, I think my interest in mapping, and because again I use technology called GIS all the time in my job. I can maybe trace that back down to chasing Carmen Sandiego around the world. So yeah.
Where in the sewer system is Carmen Sandiego?
Maybe she's in the Paris sewer system, as represented in multiple Victor Hugo novels.
Or she's in the Mushroom Kingdom. That's the next big crossover.
Oh my God! If Carmen Sandiego invaded Smash Brothers or Mushroom Kingdom or something, and we just had a Nintendo themed chase Carmen Sandiego around game, I would play the bejesus out of that. That's the crossover that we need.
Actually, you know what? Given the similarities in look and style, it's completely possible that Carmen Sandiego went into witness protection and became the mayor of New Donk City.
Yeah,
she took up
Pauline.
She took up singing jazz. That's her pastime.
I don't know. I think Pauline in Donkey Kong does predate Carmen Sandiego. But what if Carmen Sandiego went into hiding and switched places?
You see, here's the lore. It's coming back.
Like Carmen Sandiego's in custody. A gumshoe that thinks there's something fishy goes up and Carmen says, "I keep telling you, my name's not Carmen, it's Pauline."
It's the hat, I tell you. It's the hat. The hat is the hat's the giveaway. She should have gotten rid of the hat, but she didn't. She loved it too much, and now everyone knows.
Yep.
Okay, now
That's the hubris.
if we are proposing a Carmen Sandiego game set in New Donk City, then I think we're near the end of the episode. But I do have something I want to ask each of you. We brought 4 games here to show and tell: SimCity 2000, Oregon Trail, Logical Journey of the Zoombinis, and Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. None of these really have a modern sequel that is sort of the modern standard, or evolves the formula significantly of the original. That Zoombini's remake is from 2015, but it's basically the same game with different art. But if one of these were to get a modern sequel that basically preserved the spirit of the game but made a few changes, like what's one change you would like to see in a modern SimCity or Oregon Trail or Zoombini's or Carmen Sandiego? I'll go first. One thing I loved about the 96 to 98 Carmen Sandiego games are just how much personality the different criminals and guides have. The guides were basically your assistants that would help you out in each location. One of them, my favorite one, was the one named Antiquity. But I want just a Carmen Sandiego game with deeper lore, where you learn more about the criminals and the guides and Carmen herself with each case. And I would basically want it the same, like a globe-trotting adventure with ridiculous crimes and full of puns.
Oh my god. I just realized something. Niki, I'm surprised you haven't realized this. You know what has a lot of DNA in common? Carmen Sandiego and Ace Attorney.
You're right.
There's the crossover
right.
I want.
Oh,
There's
you're
the crossover I want. You have villains with pun names.
Okay, what if the new Carmen Sandiego game, as the final boss, you have to prosecute and cross-examine her?
Yes.
Oh yes, this is a game I want.
That's the change that I'm making for my final suggestion here. But Niki, Jono, or Jimmy, do you have a suggestion for a modern twist on the game that you presented?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the thing about SimCity 2000 is it's been iterated upon multiple times and improved, well, with the exception of the 2013 version, pretty much every time. The trick about SimCity or any kind of sim game is that you're simulating a city, and the more technology advances, the more detailed that simulation can get. And it seems like that is continuing into City Skylines 2, which is coming out. It's coming out later this year. I think that, and I know this is a controversial topic in pretty much every industry now, but I feel like AI has quite a bit of potential when it comes to a urban simulating game, both for citizen behavior and the irrational ways that people behave. I think that could be an interesting wrinkle if they really boosted the AI in these games to make them a little bit more challenging, but also to make them a little bit more realistic. And you could, I think I feel like the difficulty in a SimCity game, instead of it being hard, super hard, easy, I feel like just turning up or down the irrationality of your citizens would be the difficulty scale in these games. So I think that would be an interesting take if they really put a lot into the AI of the citizens.
I'm not sure what specific features that I would improve, but I think if you take a game like the Oregon Trail, which is based on an actual, time period and event in history, I think that could be done in several similar scenarios to help teach kids about historical events. I mean, I've always been a big history guy, so anything that has to do with history, even if it's alternate history, is kind of like what I lean towards. That's why I like the Assassin's Creed games, despite all their flaws. It's just because of the historical aspect of all those games.
There's even faithfully recreated architecture in several of those games. It's pretty impressive.
Right. I even like Unity, even with all its its bugs, just because I'm fascinated by the French Revolution. So I think there could be a market out there for other games like the Oregon Trail with similar gameplay aspects, but for other, maybe other areas and time periods.
What if instead of the wilderness, you were escaping zombies?
Aha.
I don't think we mentioned Oregon Trail in the podcast, and that is one of the funnier things that has come up in the last few years.
Yeah, that is, I love it.
Yeah.
The pun is an absolute 10 out of 10, like worthy of Carmen Sandiego herself.
The fact it's like a 1-to-1 recreation, it's just basically a reskinned Oregon Trail, which I think is really funny. Hey, Jimmy, you're a fan of alternate history? I didn't know that. Do you know the YouTube channel Alternate History Hub?
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
I subscribe.
Yeah, it's a great channel.
Yeah. I just love history. It's like my passion.
What if they did an Oregon Trail game, but you're a group of Zoombinis fleeing from the bloats?
There we go. There we go.
That'd be quite a reboot.
Yeah,
The Zoombini Trail.
that's right.
I mean, you got to get to Zoombiniville because, I mean, you need to hear the narrator say it with so much passion.
Exactly. Exactly.
But Niki, what's your idea for an update or a twist on the Zoombinis formula?
Yeah, this would definitely happen because this is definitely just like Zoombinis, but just a little bit different. Okay. Listen, this is a sequel, right? All the Zoombinis are, they're living in Zoombiniville. All is well. But then there's a bit of trouble. The elder is starting to behave a bit too much like the bloats. That's not good. Well, one day, one Zoombini decides to take matters into his own feet and deals with the Zoombini elder. But, oh no, the Zoombini council can't find out about this, or this Zoombini's going to have a lot of trouble. So another Zoombini decides, you know what? I'll take the blame for you. They banish him from Zoombiniville for 10 or so years. When he comes back,
Niki.
things aren't quite the same, and Zoombiniville is in a lot of crisis.
Zoombiniville is in crisis.
Zoombini like a dragon. Just think about it for a second. Just think about it.
Oh, that took me so long to get.
When you said exiled for 10 years, I think I figured it out. But wow,
that is quite a game. That is wow.
I'm imagining a Zoombini dramatically turning around, and there's a tattoo of a cartoon dragon on its back.
Oh my god! In the character selection, you can like pick individual. One of the traits is an individual tattoo.
Yes.
Oh.
One of them has an eye patch.
Yes.
Oh wow! And when you're trying to get on the ferry, they need to have the same animal tattoo, for consecutive Zoombinis.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it actually works really well because you could even work all the mini games into it.
Yeah, they could have Zoombini kart racing.
Ryu Ga Gotoku.
Yeah.
Oh god! See, I was thinking the direction I was thinking in that was it has a good setup for a good real-time strategy game. But I like your take much more.
I am shocked that on a podcast with Jono and myself on it, it was neither of us that suggested a Like a Dragon adaptation of one of the games presented.
I was trying to get through one podcast without mentioning Yakuza, and I failed.
We all failed, but I think you won this round, Niki.
Thank you.
But listeners, if any of that sounded interesting to you, Oregon Trail set in the French Revolution. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego moving to the law and order side of things, or Zoombini Ga Gotoku, the Zoombiniville is in crisis. If anything of that sounds interesting to you, then maybe you can listen to this crew talk on other podcasts. RPG Fan has 3 fine podcasts, including Retro Encounter, Random Encounter about what games we're playing and what RPGs are current, and also Rhythm Encounter about RPG music. But on Retro Encounter, the podcast you're listening to right now, next week we're going to have a spoiler cast all about Final Fantasy 16. We're a couple months removed from one of the biggest RPG releases of the year. Many people on staff have played it, and many of those people are excited to talk about it. So that's next week. But speaking of dragons, the Retro Encounter Game Journal for September is Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter, that JRPG / roguelike for the PS2. I've never played it before, and I am very curious to try it out and see how many roguelike elements it shares with Oregon Trail. So I'll have my thoughts on that on podcasts later this month. And we haven't planned out all of October yet. We do know what game we're playing in the second half. That game is Rhapsody, a musical adventure, the Nippon Ichi software game for the PlayStation 1 in the late 90s that had a re-release last year as part of the Prinny Presents Volume 3 collection, and had its 2 Japan-only sequels come out very recently on a similar collection. So there's basically more Marl Kingdom / Rhapsody available to fans for the first worldwide for the first time, and we're going to get into it with the first Marl Kingdom / Rhapsody game in October.
I believe Des just reviewed it for the site, the second one.
Right, and I think that there was a review of the first one last year as part of that collection, but I don't recall who wrote the review. It might have been Des, might have been Wes, might have been someone that rhymes with Des or Wes.
Let's find out. Rhapsody, a musical adventure. Yeah, it was Des.
Okay, all right. So I am a little familiar with the Marl Kingdom games because I love La Pucelle and Disgaea, but I haven't gone back and played those original ones. I tried playing the first one ages ago, but wasn't interested. But that was again 20 years ago. So I'm going to approach Rhapsody with newfound enthusiasm next month. But if you want to reach out to Retro Encounter or Rhythm Encounter or Random Encounter, the best way to do is to email retro@rpgfan.com for retro, or podcast@rpgfan.com for random, or music@rpgfan.com for rhythm. And Jono, you were the regular host of Random Encounter.
Yeah, we've been having some good episodes lately. I think, next week should be Sea of Stars and Starfield we're going to be talking about. So it's going to be a star-studded episode.
Excellent. And but listeners, I mentioned the podcast already, but RPG Fan is available many places on the internet, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord, YouTube, Twitch. Always called either RPG Fan or RPGFan.com on those places. Please interact with us however you choose. There's also RPGFan.com/shop, where you can buy RPG Fan merchandise such as shirts, mugs. Oh boy, phone cases, probably more stuff that I'm forgetting. But
baby onesies,
that's true. But if you're interested in picking up any merchandise emblazoned with the RPG Fan Emerald Shield, you can go to rpgfan.com/shop. But the best way, my favorite way of receiving feedback is reviews on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Play or however you listen to podcasts. Please leave feedback. Positive is best. But if you want to leave us feedback as individuals and not as a podcast, let's share our social media presences with the audience, starting with you, Jono.
Sure, you can find me at jlogan@rpgfan.com, or you can also find me on Mastodon at JonoLogan at mastodon.social.
Now, Niki.
You can find me on the Blue Sky at otomeniki, _.bsky.social. That's 1K, Niki. 2 Ks, it would be a diary. I'm not a diary. I'm just a humble Zoombini player.
Now, Jimmy.
I am not the most social media active person, but I suppose you could find me on Twitter or whatever they're calling that thing nowadays, at Turner-based XP. I should probably get on some more social media stuff, but
I'd keep off Twitter.
And let's keep calling it Twitter for the sake of my own sanity.
Yeah.
The social media platform formerly known as Twitter.
I should probably look elsewhere for my social media needs. Like I said, I rarely am ever on there.
Well, if you're interested, Jimmy, I can send you a Blue Sky invite because I am also on Blue Sky. I am at The Real Monsoon on Twitter. I haven't completely abandoned that place yet, but I am also Sollosi on bsky.social. Let's see. There's not much else to talk about, but before we sign off, I want to say it's good to be finally back. Listeners, thank you, good night, and good luck.